When billionaire Elon Musk notices a homeless man wearing a faded Tesla shirt in a San Francisco park, he pauses for a brief conversation that was meant to last only a few minutes. Little does he realize this unexpected meeting will alter both their lives forever. The homeless man, Wade Thornton, demonstrates an understanding of rocket science and battery technology that captures Elon's attention. However, it's the mysterious notebook Wade quickly hides that truly sparks Elon's curiosity. Who is this man? How did someone so clearly educated end up on the streets? And what secrets lie within those carefully guarded pages? What unfolds next will revolutionize Tesla's technology, challenge assumptions about human potential, and prove that sometimes the most brilliant ideas emerge from the most unlikely places. Elon Musk checked his watch and quickened his pace. He was running late for his next meeting, and his schedule was as tightly packed as a Tesla battery. The San Francisco sidewalk buzzed with office workers, tourists, and locals. 5 minutes, he muttered to himself. I can make it if I take the shortcut through the park. Elon turned left, cutting through a small green space that would save him precious time. The crisp autumn air brushed against his face as he walked briskly along the path lined with benches. Most were empty at this hour, except for one. A man lay curled on his side, using a worn backpack as a pillow. His beard was unkempt, his hair long and tangled. His clothes, though clean, were heavily worn. Elon would have walked past without a second glance. Homeless individuals were a common sight in the city, but something made him slow down. The man was wearing a faded black Tesla t-shirt. Elon stopped. The shirt was an original design, at least 3 or 4 years old. The red logo was cracked and peeling, but still visible. Seeing his company's emblem on this man's back gave Elon pause. The homeless man stirred, sensing someone nearby. He sat up quickly, a flicker of fear crossing his face before his eyes focused on Elon. Sorry, the man said, his voice raspy but clear. I'll move along. No, wait, Elon replied. Your shirt. It's Tesla. The man glanced down at his chest as if surprised by what he was wearing. Then his eyes widened with recognition as he looked back at Elon's face. You're him, he said quietly. You're Elon Musk? Elon nodded. And you're wearing my company's shirt. The man ran a hand through his tangled hair, suddenly self-conscious. Found it in a donation box a while back. Keeps me warm. He hesitated. I hope that's okay. Of course, Elon said. He glanced at his watch again, but found himself oddly reluctant to leave. Do you like Tesla? A smile broke across the man's weathered face, transforming it. His teeth were surprisingly white and even. Electric is the future, he said with unexpected enthusiasm. I used to work in a factory that made parts for gas cars. Always thought we were on the wrong side of history. The smile faded. That was a long time ago. Elon felt a strange connection to this man. What's your name? Wade, the man replied. Wade Thornton. I'm Elon, he said, then felt silly stating the obvious. I know, Wade said with a small smile. Kind of famous. An awkward silence fell between them. The billionaire and the homeless man separated by a vast gulf of circumstance, yet connected by a simple logo on a cotton shirt. Wade broke the silence. I followed what you're doing with the cars and the rockets. Pretty amazing stuff. There was something in Wade's eyes, a spark of intelligence, of genuine understanding, that caught Elon off guard. This wasn't just polite conversation. This man seemed to grasp the significance of the work. You know about the rockets? Elon asked. SpaceX, sure. Read about the Starship whenever I can get on a computer at the library. Reusable rockets change everything. Make space travel actually possible on a large scale. Elon's phone buzzed in his pocket. The meeting? He was now officially late. I have to go, he said, reaching into his jacket. He pulled out his wallet, then stopped. Something told him Wade wouldn't appreciate being handed cash. Instead, Elon took out a business card, something he'd rarely carried and even more rarely gave out. He handed it to Wade. If you ever want to talk more about electric cars or rockets, give that number a call. It goes to my assistant, but they'll pass the message to me. Wade took the card carefully, as if it might disintegrate in his fingers. He stared at it, then looked up at Elon with confusion in his eyes. Why? He asked simply. Elon wasn't entirely sure himself. I like talking to people who understand the vision, he finally said. Not everyone does. Wade nodded slowly, tucking the card into the pocket of his jeans with great care. Thank you, he said. As Elon turned to leave, Wade reached for his backpack. The movement caused a worn notebook to slide out and fall open on the bench. Elon caught a glimpse of the pages. They were filled with neat diagrams and calculations. What's that? Elon asked, pointing to the notebook. Wade quickly closed it and stuffed it back into his bag. Nothing important, just keeps my mind busy. His expression became guarded. Elon nodded, not wanting to pry. Take care, Wade. You too, Mr. Musk. As Elon hurried away toward his meeting, his mind kept returning to the homeless man in the Tesla shirt. There had been something about Wade's eyes when he talked about technology, a clarity and passion that seemed out of place with his current situation. And that notebook. Elon's phone buzzed again. 3 messages from his assistant wondering where he was. He pushed thoughts of Wade aside and focused on the day ahead. He had a company to run, deadlines to meet, a world to change. But even as he slid into his chair 15 minutes late for his meeting, apologizing to the room full of executives, part of his mind remained in that park, wondering about the story behind the man in the Tesla shirt. How does a man who understands rocket science end up sleeping on a park bench? And what was in that notebook he was so quick to hide? By the time the meeting ended an hour later, Elon had nearly convinced himself to forget about the strange encounter. People fell on hard times for countless reasons. It wasn't his job to solve every sad story he came across. But as his car pulled away from the curb, Elon found himself looking back toward the park. The bench was empty now. Wade Thornton was gone, taking his mysteries with him. What Elon didn't know, Cole didn't know, was that their paths were destined to cross again. And when they did, both their lives would change in ways neither could imagine. Wade Thornton watched the sleek black car pull away from the curb. He waited until it disappeared around the corner before pulling Elon Musk's business card from his pocket. The heavy cream-colored paper felt out of place in his rough hands. The raised black letters spelled out a name known around the world, along with a phone number that probably fewer than 100 people had direct access to. Now what? Wade whispered to himself. He carefully tucked the card into his notebook, the one place he knew it would stay safe. The notebook itself went into a waterproof pouch inside his backpack. That notebook contained 5 years of his life, his ideas, his drawings, and most importantly, his hope. Wade shouldered his backpack and began walking. He had moved to a shelter on the other side of town before all the beds were taken. As he walked, his mind drifted back to a different life, a life before park benches and soup kitchens. 5 years ago, Wade Thornton had it all. A beautiful home in the suburbs with a 2-car garage, a loving wife named Marissa who taught 2nd grade, and a 4-year-old daughter named Lily with curly brown hair and a laugh that could melt the hardest heart. He had a good job as an engineer at Precision Auto Parts, where he designed components for car engines. Life had been good. No, life had been perfect until it wasn't. It started with Lily's headaches, small ones at first, which they thought were normal for a growing child. Then nosebleeds. Then the day she collapsed at press school. The diagnosis came like a thunderclap: leukemia. Wade and Marissa's world narrowed to hospital rooms, medical terms, and the constant fear that hummed beneath every moment. Their health insurance covered some costs, but not all. Experimental treatments weren't covered at all, and those were the ones the specialists said offered the best hope. Whatever it takes, Wade had told the doctors. We'll find a way to pay. And they did find ways. They drained her savings, took out a second mortgage, and maxed out credit cards. Wade worked overtime, then took on consulting jobs on weekends. Marissa tutored after school to bring in extra money. Through it all, Lily fought bravely. Her hair fell out from the chemotherapy, but her spirit remained unbroken. I'm just like Daddy now, she had said, rubbing her bald head against Wade's shaved scalp, giggling despite the dark circles under her eyes. After 8 months of treatment, the miracle happened. Lily went into remission. The cancer was gone. They celebrated with a small party at home, just the 3 of them, with a homemade cake and a single candle that Lily blew out with a wish. I wish we could be happy forever. 2 weeks later, Precision Auto Parts announced layoffs. Wade's department was being eliminated. Their components were now being manufactured overseas. His job was gone. It's okay, Marissa had assured him. You'll find something else. You're brilliant. But finding another engineering job proved harder than expected. The industry was changing. Companies were downsizing, and Wade had a gap in his resume from all the time he'd taken off to be with Lily during treatments. Bills piled up. Collection agencies called constantly. The bank sent foreclosure notices. Wade took whatever work he could find, stocking shelves, delivering packages, washing dishes. But it wasn't enough to keep up with the mountain of medical debt and their mortgage. The stress took its toll on their marriage. Arguments became common. Silence even more so. We can't live like this, Marissa finally said one night after the electricity had been shut off for the 3rd time that year. My parents offered to let me and Lily stay with them until we get back on our feet. In Ohio, Wade had asked, his voice hollow. That's halfway across the country. Just for a while, she promised. Until you find something steady. But a while turned into months. Wade lost the house. He moved into a cheap apartment and kept looking for work. Each week he sent whatever money he could to Marissa and Lily. Then came the phone call that shattered what was left of his world. Wade, I think we need a break, Marissa had said, her voice gentle but firm. A real break. Lily needs stability. I'm still looking for engineering work, he'd insisted. I got some ideas, big ones. If I could just get someone to listen. Wade, she interrupted softly. It's been almost a year. Lily is starting school here. She's made friends. My parents adore having her around. And I am tired of waiting for things to get better. The divorce papers arrived 3 weeks later. After that, Wade stopped trying so hard. When he couldn't make rent, he didn't panic. When he ended up sleeping in his car, he told himself it was temporary. And when the car was repossessed, he found that park benches weren't so bad in good weather. Through it all, he kept his notebook. In the free section of the public library, he read every article he could find about advances in technology. He sketched ideas. He solved problems no one had asked him to solve. He filled page after page with designs and calculations. His specialty became batteries, more efficient ones that could power cars farther and charge faster than anything on the market. When his old laptop finally died, he continued his work with pencil and paper, working through complex calculations in his head. Wade had tried once 6 months ago to call Lily on her birthday. Marissa's father answered. She's at a party, he said coldly. Besides, you think it's good for a kid to talk to her homeless father? Get your life together. Then maybe we'll discuss visitation. The words had cut deep, but Wade couldn't argue with the truth. What kind of father was he now? What did he have to offer his daughter? So he focused on his notebook instead, on the ideas that kept his mind sharp even as his body grew thin and his clothes wore out, on the dream that someday someone would see what he saw, the potential to change everything about how we power our world. And now, walking through the streets of San Francisco with Elon Musk's business card tucked safely in that notebook, Wade felt something he hadn't felt in years. Possibility. That night, as he lay on a narrow cot in a crowded shelter, Wade stared at the ceiling. Should he call the number? What would he even say? Hello, I'm the homeless guy in the park. Want to hear my ideas about battery technology? It sounded ridiculous. And yet, Wade closed his eyes, picturing Lily's face. She would be 9 now. Did she still remember him? Did she wonder where he was? What he was doing? I'll find my way back to you, he whispered into the darkness. Somehow. For 3 days, Wade carried Elon Musk's business card in his notebook without making a decision. Each morning, he would take it out, study the heavy paper with its raised lettering, then carefully place it back between the pages of equations and sketches. On the 4th day, Wade sat on his usual bench at the public library. He had 1 hour of computer time. Usually, he spent it reading technology news and researching battery advancements. Today, though, he opened a new tab and typed Elon Musk Tesla battery development. Thousands of results appeared. Articles about gigafactories, power walls, and something called Battery Day. Wade read for his full hour, barely blinking. When his time expired, he sat back, mind racing. Tesla was working on many of the same battery problems he'd been solving in his notebook. That night, Wade couldn't sleep. Ideas buzzed in his head like electricity through wires. What if his designs could truly help? What if his random meeting was his one chance? But another voice argued back. What would a billionaire want with the homeless man's notebook scribblings? He'd look crazy, delusional. When morning came, Wade had made up his mind. He would call. The worst that could happen was nothing, and nothing was exactly what he already had. The library didn't open until 9, so Wade washed as best he could in a gas station bathroom. He brushed his teeth with a finger of toothpaste, combed his beard with his fingers, and tied his hair back with a rubber band. His clothes were worn but clean. He'd washed them in his shelter sink 2 days before. At 9 sharp, he was waiting when the librarian unlocked the doors. "Good morning, Mr. Thornton," said Miss Chen. She knew many of the regulars by name. "Morning," Wade replied. "Could I use the phone today?" The library kept an old landline phone at the reference desk for patron use. 3-minute limit unless no one was waiting. "Of course," Ms. Chen smiled. "No one here yet, so take your time." Wade nodded gratefully and moved to the desk. With trembling fingers, he removed Elon's card from his notebook and dialed the number. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. "This is Amber Patel, Mr. Musk's office." The woman's voice was brisk and professional. Wade's throat tightened. Hello. My name is Wade Thornton. I met Mr. Musk in the park a few days ago, and he gave me this card, said I should call." A pause. "I see. And what is this regarding, Mr. Thornton?" Wade clutched the phone tighter. "We talk about Tesla and SpaceX. I have some ideas about battery technology I thought might interest him." Another pause, longer this time. Wade could hear typing. "1 moment, please." Elevator music played. Wade's heart hammered. He was sure she was checking with security or maybe looking for a polite way to get rid of him. Then a click. "Mr. Thornton, I have Mr. Musk available. I'm connecting you now." Before Wade could process this, a familiar voice came on the line. "Wade, the Tesla shirt guy." Elon sounded like he was moving, his voice slightly breathless. "Yes, that's me. I'm surprised you remember. Hard to forget someone who understood both my companies. Listen, I'm between meetings. What's up, Wade? Took a deep breath. When we met, you noticed my notebook. It has ideas, designs for battery improvements. I've been working on them for years. Might sound crazy, but I think they could help with range problems and charging speed. Not crazy at all, Elon replied. Battery limitations are our biggest challenge. What's your background? Engineering. Worked in auto parts manufacturing before things changed. Elon was silent for a moment. Then, tell you what, let's meet tomorrow. Noble Cafe, 9 o'clock am. No it? Wade's mind reeled. Yes, I can find it. Bring your notebook. We'll have coffee, talk batteries. I can spare 30 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I really appreciate it. Elon. And no promises. If your ideas are good, great. If not, no harm. Either way, I'm curious. See you tomorrow. The line went dead. Wade stood frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear, until Miss Chen gently asked if he was finished. Yes, he said, his voice distant to his own ears. Yes, I'm done. Thank you. Wade walked outside in a daze. Had that really happened? In 24 hours, he would be sitting across from one of the world's richest men, showing him the work he'd done on park benches and in shelter beds. Fear suddenly gripped him. His clothes, his appearance, he looked down at his worn jeans, faded flannel shirt, and the boots held together with duct tape. You couldn't meet Elon Musk looking like this. Wade reached. The lobby had marble floors and furniture that looked too fancy to actually sit on. The woman at the desk, Amber, Elon's assistant, had treated him like he was a normal person, not someone who'd been sleeping in shelters for years. Mr. Thornton, your room is ready, she said, handing him a key card. Mr. Musk has arranged for some additional clothing items to be delivered. They should arrive shortly. Your interview at Tesla is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 o'clock am. I'll send a car for you at 9:30. No, alone in room 714, Wade stood under the hottest shower he had in years, letting the water sluice over him for a luxurious 20 minutes. The bathroom had thick towels, a robe, and toiletries in small bottles he carefully saved, even though more sat unopened on the counter. Old habits. When you have nothing, you save everything. Clean and dressed again, Wade sat on the edge of the king-size bed and opened his notebook. He needed to prepare for tomorrow. Which ideas should he focus on? Which had the most immediate practical application? His hands trembled slightly as he turned the pages. A knock at the door startled him. A hotel staff member stood there with a garment bag and a shopping bag. Delivery for Mr. Thornton, the young man said. Inside the bags, Wade found 2 dress shirts, a pair of slacks, underwear, socks, a tie, and even a new pair of shoes that looked exactly his size. A small note read simply, "For tomorrow." Wade laid everything out carefully. Then he continued preparing, flipping through his notebook and making notes on hotel stationery until well after midnight. When he finally lay down to sleep, the bed felt so soft he almost couldn't relax. Morning came too quickly. After another long shower, he couldn't help himself. Wade dressed in the new clothes. Looking in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The man staring back looked like engineer Wade Thornton, the man who had existed before everything fell apart. The ride to Tesla headquarters passed in a blur of anxiety. The gleaming building rose ahead, all glass and purpose. Wade clutched his notebook like a shield. The receptionist greeted him with a smile. Mr. Thornton, the team is expecting you. I'll show you to the meeting room. Wade followed her through security, where they gave him a visitor badge, and through hallways filled with busy-looking people carrying laptops and engaged in animated conversations. No one gave him a second glance. They couldn't see that just yesterday he had been homeless. They'd only saw a man in a clean suit with a visitor badge. The meeting room had glass walls and a long table where 4 people already sat. A woman with short gray hair stood as he entered. Mr. Thornton, I'm Dr. Helen Maxwell, head of battery research. This is my team, Dr. Lim, Dr. Patel, and Mr. Ramirez. Wade shook hands all around, his palms sweaty, but his grip firm. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you. Dr. Maxwell gestured to an empty chair. Elon spoke highly of your ideas. We're intrigued, especially about your cathode structure modifications. Wade sat down, opened his notebook, and took a deep breath. I've been working on this design for almost 3 years. It started with a simple question. Why do current batteries still take so long to charge? For the next hour, Wade explained his designs. At first, the engineers exchanged skeptical glances, but gradually, as Wade walked them through his calculations and reasoning, their expressions changed. Dr. Lim started asking technical questions. Mr. Ramirez began taking detailed notes. Dr. Patel eventually pulled out a tablet and started modeling something based on Wade's formulas. The most interesting aspect, Wade continued, gaining confidence, is that these modifications don't require entirely new manufacturing processes. They can be integrated into existing production lines with minimal retooling. Dr. Maxwell studied him. Where did you say you worked before? Wade's momentum faltered. Precision auto parts, but not in batteries. I've been between positions for some time. And you developed all this during that time? Wade nodded. It gave me a lot of hours to think. The room fell silent. Wade could feel his chance slipping away as they realized the truth. They were listening to a homeless man's notebook scribblings. Then Dr. Patel turned his tablet around. I've run a preliminary simulation of your cathode design. These efficiency numbers, they're consistent with your predictions. Mr. Ramirez leaned forward. We need to run actual prototypes, but theoretically, it's very promising. Dr. Maxwell finished. She studied Wade for a long moment, then said something that made his heart stop. Mr. Thornton, would you be interested in a position on our team? Wade stared at Dr. Maxwell, certain he had misheard. A position on your team? As a battery design consultant to start, she clarified. 6-month contract with potential for permanent employment based on performance. Elon has already approved it, pending our assessment today. Wade's mind raced. A real job. A steady paycheck. A chance to be an engineer again. Yes. Of course I'm interested. Dr. Maxwell nodded briskly. Good. HR will contact you with details. You can start Monday. She paused, studying him. Do you have housing arrangements? The question brought reality crashing back. Where would he live? His few possessions were in a storage locker, which he could only afford monthly. The hotel was just for 3 nights. Before Wade could answer, the door opened. Elon Musk walked in, glancing around the room. How did it go? He asked. Dr. Maxwell smiled. Mr. Thornton's ideas are impressive. We're bringing him on as a consultant. Elon nodded, unsurprised, and his housing situation. We were just discussing that. I've arranged a company apartment for 3 months, Elon said, turning to Wade. Part of our relocation package. Should give you time to find your own place once paychecks start coming in. Wade swallowed hard, fighting the lump in his throat. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I don't know what to say. Say you'll make those battery improvements work, Elon replied with a slight smile. That's thanks enough. After the meeting, an HR representative named Marcus helped Wade complete paperwork. They created a direct deposit account at a local bank. They arranged a company ID badge. They scheduled a medical exam. All the normal things that happen when someone starts a new job. Except nothing felt normal to Wade. Every signature, every form, every small interaction felt like a step back toward a world he had lost. That weekend, Wade moved into the company apartment. It was small but modern, with basic furniture and a view of the city. The kitchen cabinets held a few dishes and pans. The bathroom had clean towels. The bedroom had an actual bed. Wade placed his notebook on the desk in the living room, the only personal item in the entire space. Then he sat on the couch, the silence around him almost deafening. He was alone, truly alone for the first time in years. No shelter noises, no park sounds, no constant awareness of others nearby. Just him in his own space with a door that locked from the inside. Wade broke down and cried. Monday morning came quickly. Wade arrived at Tesla wearing his new clothes, his hair neatly combed, his ID badge clipped to his belt. Dr. Maxwell introduced him to the full battery team minus 20 engineers who would be his colleagues. They showed him to a small cubicle with a computer, and for the first time in 5 years, Wade had a desk to call his own. But starting over wasn't as simple as having a job title and a place to sleep. The routines of normal life felt foreign. Office small talk made him anxious. When people gathered for lunch, he hesitated, unsure if he was welcome. And there were whispers. Within days, somehow the story had spread. The homeless man Elon had hired. Wade heard murmurs when he walked into rooms, saw questioning glances from employees in other departments. Don't worry about it, Dr. Patel told him after catching Wade's pained expression when someone pointed him out in the hallway. They're just curious. Your work will speak for itself. Dr. Patel was right about the work. Wade threw himself into it, grateful for the distraction. His first assignment was developing a prototype of his cathode design. The familiar problems of engineering, materials, measurements, testing procedures filled his days and often his evenings. When anxiety struck, equations calmed him. When memories of the streets made him feel like an imposter, calculations reminded him who he really was. At night, alone in the apartment, Wade would sit by the window and look out at the lights of the city. Somewhere out there were the parks he had slept in, the shelters he had used. Sometimes it felt like a dream. Sometimes he woke up panicked, thinking he was back on a bench in the rain. 2 weeks into his new job, Wade received his first paycheck. He stared at the number on his bank statement, scarcely believing it. With trembling fingers, he did something he hadn't done in nearly 2 years. He picked up his phone and called his ex-wife. The call went to voicemail. Marissa, it's Wade, he said, his voice unsteady. I've got some news. I have a job now at Tesla. I'm working on battery design. He paused, gathering courage. "I'd like to talk to Lily if that's possible. I'm starting to get back on my feet. I've got an apartment, a real one." Another pause. "Please call me back at this number. Please." He hung up, his heart pounding. Would she call? Would she believe him? Or would she think it was just another false start, another broken promise? That night, Wade couldn't sleep. He took out his notebook and began sketching improvements to his battery design. As the hours passed, he lost himself in the work, finding comfort in the familiar patterns of problem solving. Dawn was breaking when his phone finally rang. Wade fumbled for his phone, heart racing. "Hello?" "Wade, it's Marissa." Her voice, so familiar yet distant, made his hand shake. "Thank you for calling back." A pause. "Is it true? You're working at Tesla now?" "Yes," Wade said. "It's been about 2 weeks. I'm on their battery design team." "How did that happen?" Her tone wasn't accusatory, just confused. Wade gave her the condensed version, meeting Elon in the park, interview, the consulting position. He left out the shelters, the years of homelessness. She knew enough about how far he had fallen. When he finished, silence stretched between them. "That's quite a story," Marissa finally said. "I'm happy for you, Wade." "Really? How's Lily?" he asked. The question he'd been waiting to ask for 2 years. Marissa's voice softened. "She's good. 3rd grade now, still loves science. She builds these crazy projects with her grandfather. Last week, it was a volcano that actually erupted all over the kitchen." Wade smiled, picturing it. "Does she ever ask about me?" Another pause. "Sometimes. I've never lied to her, Wade. I told her you were having a hard time, but that you love her." "I'd like to talk to her," Wade said. "Not right now, but soon. Maybe a video call." "Let me think about it," Marissa replied. "I'd want to make sure it's right for her." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Progress. After the call ended, Wade showered and headed to work earlier than usual. The conversation with Marissa had filled him with a new determination. He had to succeed at Tesla, had to prove he could be stable again. For Lily, that morning in the lab, something clicked. Wade had been struggling with a power density issue. In his prototype, the modified cathode worked, but not as efficiently as his calculations predicted. Suddenly, he saw the solution. "The problem isn't in the cathode structure," he told Dr. Maxwell, pointing to his sketches. "It's in how the electrolyte interacts with it. If we modify this compound," by lunchtime they had a new test running. By evening, the results were clear. Wade's modification had improved efficiency by 23% over the standard design. "This is impressive work," Dr. Maxwell said, studying the data. "If these results hold in scaled testing, we could be looking at a significant improvement." Over the next 2 months, Wade settled into his role. The whispers about his background faded as his contributions to the team became evident. He found a routine: work, apartment, grocery shopping, cooking simple meals. Normal things that had once seemed impossibly distant. He started saving money, bought clothes that were his, not donations, and purchased a small plant for his apartment window. 3 months after starting at Tesla, Wade received an email from Dr. Maxwell requesting a meeting with her and Elon. He arrived at the conference room nervous, unsure what to expect. Elon was already there reviewing something on a tablet. He looked up when Wade entered. "Your battery prototype is outperforming expectations." "Thank you," Wade said. "The team has been incredible to work with." "The team credits you with the breakthrough," Elon replied. "That's why we're here. Your consulting contract is up for renewal in 3 months. Instead, we'd like to offer you a permanent position, senior battery design engineer." Wade stared at him. "Permanent?" Dr. Maxwell smiled. "With the corresponding salary increase and full benefits, your work has earned it." That night, Wade called Marissa. As they continued the tour, Wade couldn't shake the feeling that Victor's appearance hadn't been coincidental. Had he been following Wade's movements? The thought was disturbing. That evening, they ordered pizza and watched a movie in the apartment. Lily fell asleep against Wade's side before it ended. As he carried her to bed, her arms around his neck, Wade felt a completeness he hadn't known was missing. Later, after Marissa had gone to her room, Wade checked his phone and found an email from Victor Reed. "Need to discuss concerns about battery project. Meeting tomorrow, 9 o'clock, and Monday morning came too quickly." Wade made pancakes for Lily and Marissa. They were flying out that afternoon, and he wanted their last day together to be perfect. "Can I come to work with you?" Lily asked, maple syrup dotting her chin. "Not today, sweetheart. I have meetings," Wade hesitated. "But I was thinking I might visit you in Ohio soon. Maybe for your birthday." Lily's face lit up. "Really? You promise?" "I promise I'll try," Wade said, careful not to make guarantees he couldn't keep. After breakfast, Wade hugged Lily tightly. "I have to go to work now, but I'll be back by noon to take you and Mom to the airport." "I love you, Daddy," Lily whispered. I love you too, more than anything. As Wade drove to Tesla, his heart was full from the weekend with Lily, but his mind was troubled by the upcoming meeting with Victor. What concerns did he have about the battery project? And why did it feel like the senior executive was watching his every move? Wade parked his car and headed into the building, unaware that Victor Reed had arrived an hour earlier carrying a thick folder with Thornton W. and Precision Auto Parts written on the tab. Wade arrived at Victor's office precisely at 9 a.m. The secretary waved him in with his sympathetic smile that made his stomach tighten. Victor wasn't alone. Dr. Maxwell sat in one of the visitor chairs, her expression unreadable. On the conference table lay several open folders and a stack of technical drawings that Wade recognized as his battery designs. "Wade, come in," Victor said. "Close the door, please." Wade did as instructed, then took the empty chair beside Dr. Maxwell. "You wanted to discuss the battery project." "Yes," Victor said, leaning back in his chair. "Elon has decided to fast-track your design. He's creating a special team to move it into production as quickly as possible." This wasn't what Wade had expected. "That's great news. Dr. Maxwell will oversee the project," Victor continued. "But Elon wants you to lead the technical team." Dr. Maxwell finally spoke. "It's a significant opportunity, Wade. Elon sees tremendous potential in your work." Wade glanced between them, sensing tension beneath the seemingly positive news. "I'm honored, but why do I feel there's something you're not telling me?" Victor smiled thinly. "Perceptive. The project will be classified. Need-to-know basis only. The technology is too valuable to risk competitors learning about it. This level of secrecy is unusual," Dr. Maxwell added. "But Elon insists on it." Wade nodded slowly. "When do we start?" "Immediately," Victor said. "You'll move to a secure lab in Building C. Your team has already been selected." As Victor outlined the project details, Wade felt a mixture of pride and unease. Leading a secret project for Tesla was an incredible opportunity, one that would cement his new life and secure his future with Lily. But Victor's sudden support felt wrong, especially after his earlier suspicion. After the meeting, Dr. Maxwell walked with Wade to the elevator. "Congratulations," she said. "This could define your career at Tesla." "Victor seems surprisingly supportive," Wade observed. Dr. Maxwell hesitated. "Victor recognizes his talent even when he has personal reservations. Be careful with him, Wade. Office politics at this level can be complicated." By afternoon, Wade had been moved to a new workspace in Building C. His team consisted of 5 engineers, all experts in their fields. The lab was state-of-the-art with equipment Wade had only read about. A new badge gave him access to areas of Tesla he'd never seen before. He left briefly to take Lily and Marissa to the airport. The goodbye was harder than he expected. Lily clung to him, making him promise again to visit soon. "I will," he assured her, "and we'll video chat every week." "I'm proud of you," Marissa told him quietly as they watched Lily examine a gift shop display. "Whatever happened in those years, you've come back from it." Wade hugged them both one last time, then watched until they disappeared through security. His heart felt both full and empty at the same time. Full of love for Lily, empty with her absence. When he returned to Tesla, his new team was already hard at work setting up test equipment. They greeted him with respect, asking questions about his design principles. For the rest of the day, Wade lost himself in technical discussions, battery schematics, and production timelines. That evening, exhausted but excited, Wade returned to his apartment. It felt strange without Lily's presence, the robot toy sitting alone on her carefully made bed. He heated a frozen dinner and ate while reviewing project notes on his new company laptop. The next week passed in a blur of activity. Wade's team made rapid progress, refining his original design for mass production. Elon stopped by twice, asking detailed questions and seeming pleased with the answers. Even Victor was cordial, though his eyes still held that calculating look when watching Wade. On Friday afternoon, Wade returned from a late lunch to find his desk had been disturbed. Nothing was obviously missing, but his notebook wasn't in the exact position he'd left it. Someone had moved it, perhaps opened it. Wade immediately checked the contents. All his designs and notes were still there, but the uneasy feeling remained. Who would go through his desk, and why? Later that day, as the team was leaving, Wade stayed behind to speak with Lisa Chen, one of the battery engineers. "Lisa, did you see anyone at my desk while I was at lunch?" She looked surprised. "No, but I was in the testing bay most of the afternoon." She hesitated. "Actually, Mr. Reed came through around 1 o'clock. He was showing someone around. Didn't introduce him. They were looking at our progress boards." Wade thanked her and headed home, the information turning over in his mind. Victor Reed at his desk again. It couldn't be coincidence. The following Monday, Elon called an early morning meeting with the project team. They gathered in a conference room where Elon announced he was increasing their budget and adding 3 more engineers. This technology could change everything, Elon said, not just for Tesla, but for energy storage globally. I want it ready for Battery Day announcement in 4 months. After the meeting, as the team filed out, Victor approached Wade. Quite a vote of confidence from Elon, he said. He rarely gets this excited about battery increments. It's more than an increment, Wade replied. Victor nodded. Indeed. Almost revolutionary, some might say. He lowered his voice. Revolutionary enough that someone might wonder where such insights really came from. Wade felt his chest tighten. What are you implying? Nothing yet. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. But revolutionary ideas rarely come from nowhere. They build on what came before. He patted Wade's shoulder. Have a good day, Thornton. That evening, Wade stayed late at the lab, running final checks on a new prototype. When everyone else had gone, he searched through his company email, looking for anything Victor might have shared about him or Precision Auto Parts. Nothing seemed unusual. As Wade finally prepared to leave, the security door beeped. Victor Reed walked in, clearly surprised to find Wade still there. Working late? Victor asked final checks on the prototype. Wade replied, closing his laptop. Victor nodded. Dedication. I admire that. He paused. Some people don't deserve second chances, Wade. Remember that. The words hummed in the air between them, threatening and ambiguous. What do you want from me, Victor? Wade finally asked. Just making sure Tesla's interests are protected, Victor replied. Some people have pasts that catch up with them no matter how far they run. After Victor left, Wade sat in the empty lab, his excitement about the project now overshadowed by growing dread. Victor was clearly implying something about Wade's past. But what? What could he possibly know that Wade didn't? He answered. Wade feared. Might destroy everything he'd rebuilt. Wade barely slept that night. Victor's words echoed in his mind. Some people have pasts that catch up with them no matter how far they run. What could Victor possibly know? Wade had never stolen ideas or sabotaged projects. His time at Precision had been unremarkable, until his daughter got sick and his life fell apart. The next morning, Wade arrived at the lab early. He needed to understand what Victor was investigating. Opening his laptop, he began searching for any connection between Victor Reed and Precision Auto Parts beyond the supplier relationship with Electra Motors. After an hour of searching, he found something. 8 years ago, when the defective battery connectors from Precision had caused problems for Electra, Victor had been in charge of the vehicle electrical systems. The recall had cost Electra millions, and shortly afterward, Victor had been demoted from chief engineer to director of development. He blames Precision for damaging his career, Wade murmured to himself. But that had happened before I joined Precision. Why target me specifically? Wade's team arrived, interrupting his research. Throughout the day, he focused on their work, guiding the refinement of production techniques for his battery design, but his mind kept returning to Victor's threat. That evening, Wade did something he'd never done before. He looked up Victor Reed's home address in the employee directory and drove past his house, a large, modern home in an exclusive neighborhood. A light was on in what appeared to be a home office. Wade parked down the street, wondering what he was even doing there. This wasn't like him. But desperation made people act in ways they never thought they would. As Wade watched, a car pulled into Victor's driveway. A man got out, not Victor, but someone vaguely familiar. It took Wade a moment to place him. One of the visitors Victor had been showing around the lab last week. The man carried a briefcase and hurried to the front door, where Victor greeted him and ushered him inside. Something about the secretive meeting felt wrong. Wade took a photo of the visitor's car and license plate with his phone, then drove home feeling both foolish and alarmed. The next day, Wade used his lunch break to visit the HR department. Sandra, the HR manager who had helped with his hiring, welcomed him warmly. Wade, how's the secret project going? Everyone's talking about it, even though no one knows what it is. It's going well, Wade said, taking a seat. Sandra, I need some advice. It's sensitive. Her smile faded. Of course. What's going on? Victor Reed has been investigating my background, specifically my time at Precision Auto Parts. I get the feeling he's looking for something to use against me. Sandra's expression turned cautious. That's a serious concern, Wade. Has he made specific accusations? Not directly, just implications. Wade hesitated. The thing is, there's nothing to find. I was a mid-level engineer at Precision for 3 years. The company had issues with Electra Motors, but that was before my time. Sandra nodded slowly. Let me look into this for you. Victor would need documentation for any formal concerns about your work or background. Thank you, Wade said. I appreciate your help. When Wade returned to the lab, his team was gathered around a computer, looking concerned. What's going on? He asked. Lisa looked up. Someone's been accessing our project files from outside the secure network. It just alerted us. What files specifically? Wade asked, a cold feeling spraying through his chest. Your original design notes, the ones you uploaded when the project started. That afternoon, Elon made a surprise visit to the lab. He seemed energized, almost manic with excitement about the project's potential. This technology could transform our entire product line, he told the team. I'm thinking beyond cars, home energy storage, grid solutions, maybe even aerospace applications. After addressing everyone, Elon pulled Wade aside. You've exceeded expectations, Wade. I want you to present at Battery Day, be the face of this innovation. Me? Wade was stunned. I'd be honored, but no buts, Elon cut in. Your story is compelling. Homeless man to battery revolutionary. The media will love it. After Elon left, Wade returned to his desk to find an email from Sandra in HR. Need to speak with you urgently. Can you come to my office at 5? When Wade arrived at HR that evening, Sandra wasn't alone. A man in a dark suit sat beside her desk. Wade, this is Michael Chen from Corporate Security, Sandra said, her voice tight. We need to discuss something important. Michael nodded grimly. Mr. Thornton, we detected unusual access patterns in our secure servers. Someone has been attempting to copy project files related to your battery technology. My team just learned about this, Wade said. Do you know who's responsible? Michael and Sandra exchanged glances. The access came from a senior executive's credentials, Michael said carefully. We're investigating further. Victor Reed, Wade said. It wasn't a question. Neither confirmed nor denied it. Instead, Sandra handed Wade a folder. This was submitted to HR this morning. Victor is formally requesting a review of your employment based on alleged misconduct at Precision Auto Parts. Wade opened the folder. Inside was a report claiming he had been involved in the battery connector failure at Precision, the one that had damaged Victor's career at Electra Motors. This is impossible, Wade said. I never worked in that division. I joined Precision 2 years after this happened. We know, Sandra said. I checked your employment dates against the incident. The timeline doesn't match. Then why? Because, Michael interrupted, someone is trying to build a case that your battery design isn't original, that it's based on proprietary technology from Precision or Electra. Wade felt sick. That's absurd. My design evolved over years, mostly while I was homeless. Every step is documented in my notebooks. Sandra leaned forward. Wade, we believe you. But Victor has allies on the board. He's claiming your design is suspiciously similar to a prototype Electra was developing before the company was sold. I have never even seen Electra's battery designs, Wade protested. We need to prove that, Michael said, and we need to understand why Victor is so determined to discredit you. After leaving HR, Wade drove straight to Victor's house, anger overriding caution. This time, he parked in the driveway and marched to the front door. To his surprise, Victor seemed to have been expecting him. Wade Thornton, Victor said, opening the door before Wade could ring the bell. I wondered when you'd show up. Come in. The house was minimalist and cold like its owner. Victor led Wade to his home office, where papers and diagrams covered a large desk. Wade recognized his own battery designs among them. You've been busy, Wade said, gesturing to the papers. Just doing my job, Victor replied, protecting Tesla's interests by falsely accusing me of stealing technology I never had access to. Victor smiled. Let's cut to the chase, Wade. I know exactly who you are and what you did at Precision. You aren't just some random engineer. You were part of Project Volta, Precision's classified battery initiative. Wade stared at him, genuinely confused. I don't know what you're talking about. I worked on engine cooling systems at Precision, nothing else. Don't play dumb, Victor snapped. Project Volta was developing the exact same battery technology you're suddenly an expert in. The same technology Precision promised to Electra but never delivered because of the connector failure that conveniently destroyed the prototypes. I've never heard of Project Volta, Wade insisted. Check my employment records. I worked in a completely different division. Victor's eyes narrowed. The records are incomplete. Precision had a fire in their HR department 7 years ago. Very convenient. Finally, Wade understood. Victor believed he had been part of a secret project at Precision, one that had supposedly been developing similar battery technology. Victor thought Wade had somehow stolen that technology and was now passing it off as his own at Tesla. You've got the wrong person, Wade said firmly. I never worked on any battery project at Precision. Everything in my design came from my own research and development over the past 5 years. Prove it, Victor challenged. My notebooks. Cool to have been created any time, Victor interrupted. I need real proof that you developed this technology independently. Wade thought for a moment. The man who visited you last night, he worked at Electra too, didn't he? Victor looked startled. You've been watching my house. I saw him arrive. Who was he? None of your business, Victor said coldly. Wade studied Victor's face, suddenly seeing something beyond anger and suspicion. This isn't just about protecting Tesla, is it? You're still bitter about what happened at Electra. The recall damaged your career and you've been looking for someone to blame ever since. Victor's expression hardened. Get out of my house. I'm going to along with this, Wade said. All of it. Your false accusations, your unauthorized access to secure files. Go ahead, Victor challenged. By the time you do, I'll have convinced the board that you're a corporate spy who infiltrated Tesla with stolen technology. As Wade drove home, his mind raced. He needed to prove his innocence. But how? His notebooks documented his work, but as Victor said, they could have been created any time. He needed something more definitive. Then it hit him, the library. The public computers where he had researched battery technology for years. The librarians who had seen him working day after day. Ms. New chat.